Following the defeat of Sauron and the destruction of the One Ring, the free peoples of Middle-earth were, finally, truly free. However, their lands were in ruin, their great cities destroyed, and the threat of ravaging orcs and the evil men who had served Sauron never truly ceased. This week on Ink and Fantasy, let's see exactly what happened to Gondor after the War of the Ring. With the return of the king and the resurgence of the men of the West, the ancient union of Gondor and Arnor was restored, with Elessar as its High King, himself a descendant from the northern line that hailed from the kingdom of Arnor. The first priority of Aragorn as king was the repopulation of the realm. Whether from war or plague, the numbers of the men of the West had fallen alongside their cities. The lack of any existential threat, the legitimacy of his reign, and the competence of his rule created the necessary political stability for Gondor and Arnor to experience prosperity for the first time in centuries. Aragorn re-established the Great Council of Gondor, with the Stewart Faramir as its chief, and he did the same with the Northern Kingdom, so that the mighty of the land could discuss the matters of the realm and advise the returned king. In Letter 244, Tolkien goes into some detail about the happenings of the realm after the war, writing, "Also to be Prince of Ithilien, the greatest noble after Dol Amroth in the revived Númenórean state of Gondor, soon to be of imperial power and prestige, was not a market garden job as you term it. Until much had been done by the restored king, the Prince of Ithilien would be the resident March Warden of Gondor in its main eastward outpost, and also would have many duties in rehabilitating the old territory and clearing it of outlaws and orc remnants, not to speak of the dreadful Vale of Minas Ithil." I did not, naturally, go into details about the way in which Aragorn, as King of Gondor, would govern the realm. But it was made clear that there was much fighting, and in the early years of Aragorn's reign, expeditions against enemies in the east. The chief commanders under the king would be Faramir and Imrahil, and one of these would normally remain a military commander at home in the king's absence. A Númenórean king was monarch, with the power of unquestioned decision in debate, but he governed the realm with the frame of ancient law, of which he was administrator and interpreter, but not the maker. Conflict remained at the forefront of Gondorian policy, and it would be a uniting factor for the relationship with the kingdom of Rohan and King Eomer. As part of the Oath of Eorl, the Rohirrim would often ride alongside the Gondorians to fight what remained of Sauron's evil. In the appendices of the Return of the King, Tolkien specifies, "In Eomer's day in the Mark men had peace who wished for it, and the people increased both in the dales and the plains, and their horses multiplied. In Gondor the King Elessar now ruled, and in Arnor also. In all the lands of those realms of old he was king, save in Rohan only, for he renewed to Eomer the gift of Sirion, and Eomer took again the Oath of Eorl. Often he fulfilled it, for though Sauron had passed, the hatreds and evils that he bred had not died, and the King of the West had many enemies to subdue before the White Tree could grow in peace. And wherever King Elessar went with war, King Eomer went with him, and beyond the Sea of Rhûn, and on the far fields of the south, the thunder of the cavalry of the Mark was heard, and the white horse upon green flew in many winds until Eomer grew old." And so, as the Oath of Eorl was retaken and Rohan's independence was reaffirmed, the map of the old reunited kingdom now looked a little different. Notably, Rohan and the Shire were out, the former completely and the latter practically. In fact, the Shire not only retained its political independence, but Aragorn guaranteed its safety as a protectorate of the reunited kingdom, prohibiting any man from stepping foot inside of it again, so that a scouring would never again occur. He also expanded its territory, and it would now include Westmarch. Gondor didn't just shrink, however. With battling the Easterlings, the land surrounding the inland Sea of Rhûn was annexed, alongside most of Umbar and its formerly devastating corsairs. In addition, of parts of the traditionally elven realms, whose inhabitants were leaving Middle-earth. Elessar pursued countless grand projects. Osgiliath, the former capital of Gondor and glory of Númenor in exile, was likely rebuilt and repopulated, although we know for a fact that Minas Tirith retained its position as Gondor's administrative capital. The king rebuilt Anúminas, the traditional capital of Arnor, which would once again be the center of the Northern Kingdom. He also rebuilt Fornos Terrain, Arnor's second capital. Minas Ithil, which had become the dreadful Minas Morgul, was an important question to deal with. Sauron and his ringwraiths may have fallen and their monsters scattered, but the darkness and the corruption that had overtaken this once great city, the sister of Minas Anor, could not be ignored. As such, the decision was made. For, said he, Minas Ithil in Morgul Vale shall be utterly destroyed, and though it may in time to come be made clean, no man may dwell there for many long years. Thus, the fate of Minas Morgul was sealed. Unlike the other great cities of Gondor, there would be no immediate rebuilding, no repopulation, and no reclamation. The shadow that had festered there for centuries had seeped too deep into its stones, and from then on it would stand as a wound in the landscape of Gondor. The nearby lands of Mordor, as we have covered before on the channel, were largely left as they were, barren and devoid of life, with the exception of the Sea of Nurnen, which was taken over by Sauron's former slaves. Gondor did not establish sovereignty over the Shadowlands. All in all, Aragorn, or rather King Elessar, ruled for 122 years. His reign oversaw much war and consolidation, and the return of true Númenórean rule. The king lived to be 210 years old, before dying in the year 120 of the Fourth Age from natural causes. For a purebred Númenórean, he did not live particularly long, and perhaps the hardships of his life shortened his years. In fact, this is Aragorn's death, as written by Tolkien. Lady Undomiel, said Aragorn, the hour is indeed hard, yet it was made even in that day when we met under the white birches in the garden of Elrond, where none now walk. And on the hill of Kerin Amroth, when we forsook both the shadow and the twilight, this doom we accepted. Take counsel with yourself, beloved, and ask whether you would indeed have me wait until I wither and rail from my high seat, unmanned and witless. Nay, lady, I am the last of the Númenóreans, and the latest king of the elder days, and to me has been given not only a span thrice that of men of Middle-earth, but also the grace to go at my will, and give back the gift. Now, therefore, I will sleep. I speak no comfort to you, for there is no comfort for such pain within the circles of the world. The outermost choice is before you, to repent and to go to the havens and bear away into the west the memory of our days together, that shall there be ever green, but never more than memory, or else abide the doom of men. Nay, dear lord, she said, the choice is long over. There is now no ship that would bear the hence, and I must indeed abide the doom of men, whether I will or nill, the loss and the silence. But I say to you, king of the Númenóreans, not till now have I understood the tale of your people and their fall. As wicked fools I scorned them, but I pity them at last. For if this is indeed, as the Eldar say, the gift of the one to men, it is bitter to receive. So it seems, he said, but let us not be overthrown at the final test, who of old renounced the shadow and the ring. In sorrow we must go, but not in despair. Behold, we are not bound forever to the circles of the world, and beyond them is more than memory. Farewell. Arwen would die soon thereafter. The king was succeeded by his eldest son, Eldarion. He is described as capable and ready for his kingship, having been prepared well by his father. His rule was also successful and prosperous, and it was during his reign that the royal scribe Findegil preserved copies of the Red Book of Westmarch written by Bilbo and Frodo, so that it could be inherited by later generations and ultimately find its way to Tolkien himself. As within the fiction, the professor claimed to have been simply the translator of The Lord of the Rings. It was during his reign that Tolkien's abandoned sequel, The New Shadow, took place, which was framed as a psychological thriller that would oversee the rise of a Sauron-worshipping cult in the heart of Gondor. This cult would aim to overthrow the king and the peace of the realm, as many decades after the War of the Ring, the people had already forgotten the nature of Sauron. Regardless, this idea was abandoned by Tolkien after only a few pages. Eldarion died a century after his father, and we know not what followed. Except, of course, for what Tolkien says in The Peoples of Middle-earth. Of Eldarion, son of Elessar, it was foretold that he should rule a great realm, that it should endure for 100 generations of men after him. That is, until a new age brought in again new things, and from him should come the kings of many realms in long days after. And with that, Gondor's story is over. Through war, numerous reforms, consolidation of power, and rebuilding efforts, the reunited kingdoms were able to reach much of their former glory, and the White Tree, which hailed from Telperion himself, was restored. If you'd like to support the channel and not miss out on future videos, please consider subscribing. You can also click the link on the right to become a channel member and get early access to all of my content.